Well, thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're about a little bit after 12 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. Eastern Time. If you have had lunch already, good for you. If not, a few more minutes, and then you're ready to go have your lunch. Thank you for joining us today. This is our third session on technology business management. A couple of house cleaning items here. The sessions that we have for you, these presentations are really interactive. So we ask you to please ask questions, talk to us, tell us what you think, tell us what might be on your mind, and we'll try to answer you towards the end of the presentation, as well as remember that there's an office hour later this afternoon that you could talk directly with the presenters today. If you have any questions that you want to talk directly, you could do that. One of our partners will be present there as well, and they'll be talking. So look forward to your participation and look forward to your attention to our next session. So far today, we've talked about application lifecycle management, asset lifecycle management. What do we have to do to make sure that our assets are optimized, they're running for our users, that we're getting the maximum benefits that we have on them. We talked about visual inspection earlier this morning. In just the past session, we talked about application security, what we have to do to make sure that our applications are in top performance, they're optimized, and AI is helping us to provide visibility into any issues that we have with our application. One thing we haven't talked about is what are the costs of these applications? What do we have to do to better financially manage all of our applications? And in this session, my good friend Gavin is going to take us through one of the solutions that IBM has for this problem for our clients. Gavin, it's on to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kambiz, and obviously thank you everyone for joining today. As mentioned, this really is an interactive session, so we'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, as we dive a little bit deeper into these topics, because I'm sure that many of you do have a lot of questions about one of IBM's recent acquisitions, which is the Apptio team. And today we're going to be discussing two critical components and solution pillars that exist underneath this notion or this concept of technology business management. And those two items are ITFM, or IT financial management, as well as SPM, which is strategic portfolio management. So we'd like to really give you a bit of a better understanding about what each one of these solution pillars is, and then ultimately how these can be paired to work better together. So as IT and finance leaders, we know that everybody is under enormous pressure to deliver innovation while managing rising costs and ultimately proving value back to the business. And our goal with this Better Together story is really to show you how integrating these two disciplines can give you complete visibility, better control, and really help you deliver real business outcomes for the organization. But before we dive deeper into the actual synergy itself, I'd like to spend a little bit more time to level set on what are some of the key trends that we're seeing within the market, and then go a little bit deeper into ITFM and SPM as actual individual practices. So the market trends, really what we're seeing, and we're going to go over a few specific items here, but ultimately technology footprints are quickly expanding in size and scope. It's becoming increasingly distributed and complex, and it's really making it impossible to manage by traditional methods. So think spreadsheets, manual processes, homegrown tools. And with the advent and the additional adoption of cloud computing as it continues to accelerate, modern technologies are just more energy and resource intensive, which is requiring significant investments to support associated projects, our app and service, and really how do we make IT this critical partner to the business, not just this cost center or this area where they're going to be deploying resources for an organization. But the complexity really isn't just limited to innovation and software and hardware. Companies are really looking to shift from their CapEx, so capital expenditures, to operational expenditures, so OpEx, and variable spend models, along with a lot of decentralized provisioning, which is really making IT spend less predictable. So this idea of managing costs has become an absolute imperative, and costs can accumulate in any number of places. So as we were chatting about just at the very beginning here around applications and that life cycle, one of the critical components to that is really understanding that cost. So IT and finance leaders really need to watch for things like redundant application, over-provisioned infrastructure, underutilized software licenses, and understanding the technical debt of existing systems and inefficient vendor contracts. Now, we can also bring in cloud's variable spend model, which is going to introduce a whole new host of challenges, again, including the risks of over-provisioning, leaving resources idle or underutilized, and just understanding the over-complex pricing and discount models that can be associated with many of our public cloud vendors. Now, in the past, when businesses grew and became more complex, finance and IT leaders would tend to solve the complexity and the problem by hiring more personnel. And this was really a singular or linear way to think about the problem. However, we're seeing that hybrid IT real estate portfolios, they're accelerating too quickly, and leaders aren't able to use a linear solution to solve this kind of exponential problem. So modern IT and technology business management is going to require proper tools, as well as the right kind of automation and simplification. So ultimately, it comes down to this concept of a single source of truth for monitoring, as well as optimizing investments. And that is really ultimately the way that we can keep pace in this kind of dynamic environment. Now, when we think about that in context of what are some of the key global CIO and tech trends that we've got for 2025 and beyond? Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but what it does is gives us a nice look into the new and emerging trends in the market. We know that IT budgets are continuing to increase, but tied to that, CIOs, IT, and finance leaders are facing increased scrutiny, and they're now required to show value and ROI on investments in a shorter time frame with defensible data. And that's why, to point one here, this idea of business value of IT. In Gartner's recent survey, they found that demonstrating the business value of IT is now actually the third highest priority for CIOs. And this is after managing cybersecurity and executing a proper IT strategy. So it's really this notion of managing the technology financials to balance cost, value, and risk, and maintain this as a high priority for CIOs as well as other IT leaders in the organization. Because CIOs are now central to business strategy. And so we're seeing that there's an increase of activity and democratization of data, with now over 40%, if not 50% of CIOs regularly updating boards or executive committees on the status of digital initiatives. So again, we're seeing that responsibilities and those roles start to increase, and the exposure and the expansion of the need to demonstrate why we're investing, where we're investing, and ultimately what we're delivering to the organization as a whole. And that really lends well to the next topic, which is AI. So we've got two key areas here, demonstrating the ROI, but also the impact of AI in decision making. Ultimately, what we're going to see is that AI spending is going to grow at 2x the rate of overall digital technology spend in the next 3 years. And so CIOs need to be able to not only understand what they're spending it on, but also be able to really dictate and showcase that where the money is going is going to deliver clear value, as well as drive innovation and new revenue streams for an organization. So this is just a consistent expectation that is increasingly voiced by leadership. And 90+% of CIOs said that managing cost limits their ability to get value from AI for their enterprise. So they really need to be able to understand that where they're putting the money and where they're putting these investments is going to drive the right kind of innovation and value. And to do that, they need to be able to really understand what is happening from that overall investment perspective and understand their entire hybrid IT perspective and portfolio. The last item here is this shift to hybrid cloud approach. Again, what we saw coming out of COVID was a lot of organizations had to shift to remote work. A lot of organizations decided that on-prem wasn't really the future for them and they needed to move to this pure public cloud adoption. What we're seeing now is a repatriation or a shift back to hybrid environments. This includes hybrid cloud, but also overall hybrid environments. So on-prem, private cloud, public cloud. What we're seeing is that basically 80% of survey respondents from a recent IDC report expect to see some level of repatriation in the next 12 months and all the way through mid-2025 and beyond. And that is really, again, tied to this inherent need for CIOs to prioritize managing their IT financials to balance cost, value, and risk. Because again, when COVID happened and there was this necessitated need to go everything virtual, we need to move to public cloud, there wasn't a clear thought process on what is this transformation going to cost us? When I make this shift from an on-prem or private cloud to a public, how do I understand the TCO, so the total cost of ownership, but also how do I understand the unit costs, and how do I understand those before and after factors that are really going to help enable me with the right kind of detail and information to showcase what I'm providing as far as value from IT investments, but also what is being done from a run the business perspective. So really think of that as keep the lights on. And ultimately, why all of this is really important, and these trends are really important, how this is going to tie to IT financial management, is that while we know overall IT spend is increasing and public cloud spend is increasing, and it's, the hot topic, we keep hearing about cloud, we want to ensure that we are taking a look at our portfolio holistically. So again, that's when I'm going to keep saying these terms with hybrid IT, hybrid portfolio, because when companies get too focused or too centric around this idea of just public cloud spend, we're really taking a myopic view and focusing only on this one sector, which really represents less than typically 20% of the overall hybrid IT real estate portfolio that we have for an organization. So we're going to be really negating potential cost savings and optimizations across things like labor, vendor, projects, assets, on-prem, and more areas. And so what we're really trying to educate and open the aperture on here is understanding a full IT cost and investment portfolio, because this is ultimately how you're going to be able to make better and more informed decisions across the organization. So it's ultimately about leaders being able to take a step back and understand that the broader scope of moving away from IT being just a cost center and becoming a strategic leader is really having that focus and that understanding of what is happening across the IT horizon. And so that's why IT financial management is really important, because we include cloud, we include labor, we include vendor. We're looking at your products, your projects. So again, it is really taking a look at 100% of your IT spend and really understanding, are we allocating to the right areas? Are we making the right decisions? Are we able to understand the data in the right way, in the right context, to be able to make the right kind of decisions, whether that be external events? So you could think of market fluctuations. You could think of the new world that we're facing with tariffs between different countries, or internal changes, mergers and acquisitions, new expansions, etc. And so it's really important to understand that we want to take this full view of our portfolio and bring that into our understanding to make the right kind of decisions for the organization to drive innovation. The second big thing that we're seeing is CIOs as well as other IT leaders are facing a pretty big paradigm shift. And we kind of noted this before in this idea that they're presenting data and information more regularly to the board, CEOs, and other executives. And it's this idea of democratization of data. So when we think about digital delivery and digital innovation, it no longer is sitting in this centralized hub or a singular focus or domain. It's really about working collaboratively across our key stakeholders in the organization to understand how we can really balance this idea of, here's our cost pool of money. How do we make sure we're making the right kind of cost benefit decisions, but also how do we manage growth? So how do we understand, again, those costs for run the business versus grow the business? And this expands well beyond just that CIO purview. So if we think about it from a few different personas, we have our IT finance, and they're going to be able to benefit from the ability to analyze and plan IT spend faster, because they're going to be able to have insights and action plans that surface optimization opportunities and drive spend accountability. From a CFO, we're able to communicate up and really educate them and provide the key information we need from an IT spend perspective, which is going to help to reduce risk to the business and ensure that we are delivering the highest ROI from IT spend. From a CIO's perspective, it's ultimately around demonstrating strong IT financial stewardship to the business, because we're able to drive continuous spend optimization processes. As we go a little bit further below the line, We can look at our IT and business leaders. So here we're bringing them in, we're sharing the critical data that they need to know in the right context in a consistent way. That's really going to allow them to optimize costs across vendors, contracts, labor, and projects. And they can make more informed staffing decisions based on things like accurate labor mixes and allocations. And this will really help that optimization shift from spend to growing investments. And we can go even further and more granular. Think about app and service owners. They're able to better prioritize and balance things that are going to impact the business. By properly implementing the right kind of ITFM processes and tooling will help us to really influence business unit consumption. And it's going to really drive that shared accountability through things like showback. So we're going to be able to really educate and work with these individuals to show how they're consuming IT resources, how this is being tied to key projects or products that we are developing, and ultimately where we can pull the right kind of levers to either reduce costs, redirect spending, but ultimately that goal here again is how do we ensure that we're investing in the right kind of innovation and the right kind of growth matrix for the organization. So it's the right data, the right time, with the right context. And then another, way we can think about this, and it's always an interesting scenario. Imagine today you're a CIO, you're an IT finance, you're on an elevator. Let's say the CEO walks in or an executive from the board walks in and they're looking over some spreadsheets and they say, hey, I noticed that we had a X number, so we can call it $20 million increase in our spend here within this certain area of IT. What's going on? Now imagine you've got 3 or 4 floors sitting there and you've got to be able to very quickly answer why the spend is increasing, where it's going, ultimately, what is the benefit it's driving to the business? What is the inherent need that we're responding to? But if you don't have the critical information at your fingertips, having the ability to respond to this in an educated and also informed and defensible way is going to be very difficult. And we find with a lot of the conversations that we have with clients, a lot of times that response is, you're going to have to give me a few days, give me a few weeks, let me go back and work with the team. And then it's a lot of collation of data, pulling together disparate data sources. And by the time we get the answer, a few days, few weeks has passed, and it's from a singular point in time that was, not current. And so it really is about that idea of providing you with real-time information, real-time data, so that way when you are posed with critical questions about why, where, what, when, and what is the benefit, you are going to be able to answer that in a very informed, defensible manner. Now, ultimately, that's great. In theory, everyone would love to be able to do that, but what are the key things that we're hearing from all of the organizations that we start to work with and the other analysts that we speak to within the field? And they're pretty clear. When we think about managing IT spend today, majority of this is done within a manual or homegrown tool or something like a spreadsheet. Now, the very clear problem with this is that they're very time consuming. As I said, you're going to require a lot of individuals. You're going to require a lot of time. You're going to require a lot of different spreadsheets. And it's going to take a significant period of time just to be able to collate this, pull this together, ensure that it's correct. And in order to be able to really respond in real time to real-time scenarios for the business and ensure we're making the right kind of decision, we need to be able to do this in a very expedited and clear manner. The second point is really the lack of visibility. When we're doing this in a spreadsheet or a homegrown tool, again, that is a very 2D format. So it's going to be binary. These are just numbers that we're looking at on a page. And ultimately why that is going to be a difficult situation is that you can't click, you can't drill and trace, you can't go deeper into this information. You're really just having to accept this information at face value. And without this visibility, it brings into concern things like trustworthiness and defensibility. Why is the number here? What is driving it? What is the ultimate cost driver behind it? And again, you can see some of those questions there. How am I spending? Where's it going? What value is it driving? We aren't able to answer that in a very concise way or in a way that is really going to inspire confidence or trust with our key stakeholders as well as our executives. The other point again here is those unpredictable market changes. So we want to think again, COVID times, the tariffs, maybe some of the new restructuring and some of the new rigor that we're seeing come in from DOGE from a US government perspective, how do we make the right kind of market shifts to internal but also external impacts? We need to know where we've been to understand where we need to go. And we need to do that in a very fast, real-time perspective, because that is the way that we can really capitalize on opportunities and ensure that we're not going to underutilize, over-provision something, and make the right kind of decision we need for an organization. And in short, all of that has really been a very quick introduction and a precursor to really educate everybody on what is this concept of IT financial management, why is it important, and what are those inherent needs that we are really solving for an organization. So as noted, this is a formal definition of what IT financial management is. But if we want to look at the bottom box there on the left, really it is about providing individuals with the right data in the right way to the right stakeholders. Because again, data is great, but the problem is it's got to be in the right context. It's got to be consistent. And implementing solution and tooling will never work unless there's the right kind of process and acceptance from an organization perspective. So really, while we say that we're able to analyze, plan, and optimize the cost and investments and really work to showcase that business value of IT, it's really got to be in a way that's going to bring together the disparate data sources as well as disparate groups. So ultimately, ITFM is going to bring together IT, it's going to bring together finance and the business units, and it's going to align them within this common structure, in this common framework. And it's going to be able to showcase them the information that they need that is going to be timely, but also it's going to make sense. Because again, if we're going to be thinking of this from a spreadsheet or a manual process, that is a very finance-centric point of view. So we want to ensure that we are providing people with the right kind of information that is going to be in the context that will help them drive the right kind of key decisions that they need and have the right kind of financial governance, have the right kind of budget tracking, performing cost benefit analysis. And so it really ultimately is about providing that visibility to provide more informed decision making regarding budget allocation and investments. And it will help with cost savings, better business outcomes, improve business performance, all while promoting this transparency and accountability across the organization. And why that's ultimately important is what we're hearing in the industry is that it's just not possible right now. A lot of individuals that are trying with these manual processes or trying with spreadsheets are just lacking that critical information. So if we think back to the first slide that was presented around some of these key industry statistics, understanding how we can showcase the business value of IT and help shift CIOs and IT finance and these business units from going from cost centers to becoming strategic partners and working across the portfolio. Well, we just have to take a quick look at what we're seeing from recent surveys and what's happening within the marketplace. First point here is that we're hearing that majority of CIOs don't believe they have the right kind of transparency within their IT costs. So again, where's the money going? What are they spending on? What's the value driving? Who's consuming it? And then that ties in really well with the second point, which again, majority of CIOs are struggling to communicate what is the value. So again, it is one point to be able to see where it's going, map it out, allocate it, see it from your general ledger to your business units. But more importantly, it's about the ability to communicate what that is driving and ultimately providing for the organization. And then to the last point there, I know it says 92%. I'm sure realistically this should be 100% because everybody should consider this information to be highly important when we are making budget decisions. Because this information, again, understanding where we've been, what it delivered for us, will really help us to make the right kind of decisions in a forward-looking format. Because we need to be able to understand what worked, where we were over, where we were under, and how this will really help to predicate what we want to do from an overall forecasting perspective. And so this is really going to help those key questions that we have. So what am I spending? Where is it being spent? Why am I spending it? Who is spending it? And what business value is it actually driving for the organization? And that is the litmus test for what IT financial management should do and what an IT financial management solution should do for you. The other key point here is that it's going to digitize this process for you. That is one really key aspect about this, because when we think about the new wave of things, it is an increase in this concept of automation, in simplicity, in modernization, and how do we make it easier for you and make it more efficient for you to do what you're doing in your current role. And so that is really an important thing to understand, because we're able to move away from, again, enduring multiple spreadsheets, which we know have issues with version control. You could have people toying in there and there really is no clear audit trail as to what is happening, what is changing. Beyond that, again, that defensibility, that ability to really click through, drill and trace, understand the unit economics does not exist in these manual processes. And as soon as you do move into this digitized, automated platform where you do have the right kind of IT financial management tooling, we remove all of those barriers there. And the last key point is, again, that consistency. So I noted that tooling is great, but it's got to be paired with a process. And one of the key things that we hear from a lot of organizations that reach out and work with Apptio is that they did have somebody that might have been working in a manual process or within a spreadsheet, but that person ultimately decided to leave the organization. Now you've got this complex slew and disparate data and a very confusing overall process, and nobody owns it. Nobody understands the back end or the implications of making these kind of decisions. And we want to really help organizations step away from that reset, because again, that digitization and automation that comes with IT financial management tooling is the fact that if somebody leaves, the process still exists. The data is still there. It's consistent. The dashboards, everything is going to be happening, whether you're looking at it week over week, month over month. You are going to have that consistency, which again, from a continuation perspective for an organization is critical, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody leave and these critical processes breaking somewhere along the way. And that is really a key reason why this idea of moving towards something that is going to simplify, automate, and digitize your hybrid IT portfolio is really critical for CIOs and IT finance moving forward. Now we'll quickly jump over to SPM, or Strategic Portfolio Management. We'll do a quick overview as to some of the key areas of focus here, some of the benefits, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how ITFM and SPM actually work together as a tooling framework. Now, I know there's a lot of acronyms here, so I want to be clear that SPM is not just another flashy 3-letter acronym. It really is about expanding upon that single source of costing truth that we have within IT financial management. And it moves beyond that because we're now looking at deeper strategy, business, IT, and portfolio leaders to collaborate, plan, and execute strategy. It's really allowing us to focus on what you should be investing in. So SPM is going to give IT leaders and CIOs a way to prioritize and manage the full portfolio of work. It's going to include our projects, our products, and our programs, and make sure that these investments align with key business strategy. It's also going to enable better resource allocation. So making sure people, time, and money are focused on high impact initiatives. And finally, SPM is going to help us monitor value realization. So ensuring you're not only starting the right projects, but you're delivering on the outcomes promised. So where IT financial management focuses very heavily on that cost side, the transparency, the cost cutting, and some of the optimization, SPM is going to drive more optimization on that value side. And both are needed for that full IT investment management for an organization. Now, we quickly mentioned that it's about understanding where we're investing, but also making sure that we are delivering on these investments. And you can see on the slide here, this stat that about half of digital initiatives meet, or less than half, meet or exceed business outcome targets. Now, I saw another survey where they said 70% of them don't. So it depends on what information you're going to hear in the market. But, you know, the key takeaway here is this is not high enough. If we're looking at 50% or 30%, we want to make sure this is a much higher number, because we want to be able to ensure that organizations are going to exceed the outcomes and the targets that they have. And by being able to do that, again, it's going to drive the right kind of digital innovation, but it's going to ensure that we're resourcing and we're allocating resourcing in the right way. And strategic portfolio management really addresses these organizational realities, because whatever the cause is, the result of a misalignment of people and IT and technology with strategic goals is always going to be the same. It's going to be inefficiency and higher operating costs. This not only wastes resources, but it can also undermine competitive positioning in the long run. And SPM is really going to help mitigate a lot of these risks and how they exist within an organization. You can think about SPM as like a guiding tool or a GPS. It's going to help customers and organizations to continually align their costs and delivery with strategy. So if we think about a strategic perspective, we're able to deliver actionable insights into available versus demanded capacity. We're going to be able to make data-driven decisions to deliver on strategic goals and objectives, maximizing synergies and managing the constraints. From a planning perspective, we can illustrate options and impacts to respond to changes. We're also able to prioritize key investments, account for available resources, risks, dependencies to ensure that we are maintaining alignment. We're also able to identify opportunities to upskill our workforce to fill gaps, enable flexibility, and provide growth opportunities to meet future demand. From an execution perspective, we can deliver on plans and respond dynamically to changes with flexibility. Again, think back to that comment around IT financial management of knowing where your money is going. It's also important to know where resourcing is, where labor is, where projects, where the products are, and being able to react, whether that is, again, internally or to external market forces. And the last point is that optimization. This should not be a singular point in time. Again, it's much like our budgeting and forecasting. We don't want to be doing budgeting and forecasting once a year, because that is only going to be providing us with that singular point in time. It is static. It is not real time and allowing us to inform based on what is happening and what is our reality today. So we need to ensure that we are continuously reviewing our performance to improve. And this is really done by refining strategies and ultimately planning for better outcomes overall as an organization. So let's quickly chat about pairing ITFM and SPM together and what that means. And when we think about the two practices, there really is a high cost of not integrating the two. And that really is coming up about from different groups operating in isolation. And when this happens, organizations are really going to experience several pain points and gaps. So you'll see siloed data and visibility gaps. Financial and project teams are going to use different tools and lenses, and this fragmented view means there's no single source of truth. Project portfolio managers are going to lack a comprehensive view of enterprise data, which is going to hinder capacity planning, budget allocation, timely decision making. And these disconnected systems tracking budgets versus work will make it really difficult to respond to changing conditions. Misaligned priorities. Again, without integration, what IT teams will typically execute often isn't tied to what finance is budgeting. As one finance lead put to us, it says what technology was doing from a resource perspective wasn't tied to what finance was doing from a budgeting perspective. So really, when funding decisions don't reflect real project needs and vice versa, high value initiatives may be underfunded while low value work gets resources, which is ultimately this recipe for suboptimal outcomes. The next is inefficiency and planning delays. So when we have separate processes for financial planning and portfolio management, it's going to lead to very tedious, lengthy planning cycles if organizations are even doing that. We were working with one Fortune 100 firm, and their annual budgeting was a 15-week spreadsheet-driven ordeal. Disconnected from actual project execution, finance lacked a clear view of what project teams were doing, and it made budgeting decisions slow and accurate. And such delays meant that that plan was outdated by the time it was approved. And ultimately, what we're able to do is we're able to take that and we're able to reduce significant amounts of that delay because we're providing that real-time information by bringing together the two portfolios and have you have a very real-time consolidated view. So that way you can move away from these long, arduous, tedious, manual spreadsheet-driven kind of budgeting, planning processes, among other things tied to IT financial management and SPM. The other areas, as we quickly touched on in the previous slide, was some of the missed opportunities and wasted spend. So rigid annual budgets that don't adjust to dynamic portfolio changes will cause organizations to miss out on opportunities. When funding cannot pivot quickly to new strategic priorities, the business can't capitalize on emerging market demands. Organizations struggle to optimize resources and maximize value from their IT investments. And the result is often money spent on, again, low impact projects, while high impact ideas will languish unfunded. And this is an opportunity cost that no business can afford. The last point here is strained business relationships. One of the key things that I started with was this idea of right data, right context, right time. And most critically, the disconnect between IT's execution and finance reporting erodes trust. So the business might view IT as a cost center with unpredictable spend, while IT feels finance doesn't appreciate the value of its project. And this strain can lead to contentious budget conversations and a lack of accountability for results. And without this kind of unified approach, it's hard to have meaningful, value-focused dialogue with business stakeholders. So again, it is about that democratization of data, but it's also about bringing together those different groups. So the IT, the finance groups, the business groups, and it's in a way that it's going to provide them with that key information and understanding and data that's going to make sense in their terms. So again, that is really important to understand, that it is about, again, the context, the right data, and having that consistency. So ultimately, by not pairing these two systems together, it's going to leave organizations flying partially blind. They might endure inefficiencies, they can't fully trace where dollars are going in relation to strategic goals, and there ultimately is that risk in overspending and under-delivering on business value. And when we think about how do we manage these problems, how do we solve these problems? So again, by bringing them together, we are going to remove that idea of a siloed data and visibility gaps, because now we have this one source of truth for financial visibility as well as our workflow visibility. So that means everybody from our CIO to CFO to the PMO is going to look at the same data on project status, resource utilization, and spend. And this end-to-end visibility into real-time portfolio and cost data, decision makers can finally see the big picture and make informed decisions, and executives can get insights based on the freshest information, not last quarter's static reports. We're able to now better align strategy and spending. And so with this integration, every initiative in the portfolio is now directly linked to budget and forecast. This is going to create a tight alignment of investments to strategic objectives. Teams can define and track goals, i.e. OKRs, at portfolio, product, and team levels to ensure funding is flowing to the highest value work. And if strategies shift, the organization can dynamically reallocate funds to the new priorities in real time. That means we are constantly mirroring IT spend with our business strategy. So no more funding projects that ultimately are not going to be supporting key goals. The next is, again, that forecasting and financial agility. So really marrying these two together is going to improve our overall accuracy and financial agility. So we're able to move from this idea of annual static budgets to iterative rolling forecasts that will adjust as projects evolve. And this lean budgeting approach will embrace flexibility and continuous replanning, allowing enterprises to pivot funding on the fly and result in faster time to market for new initiatives and the ability to seize opportunities or trim losses without waiting for the next budget cycle. We're able to optimize our resource utilization. So it means that we can manage demand and capacity in tandem with our budget. So portfolio and finance data together highlight where excess capacity can exist and where funds can be reallocated. Or on the flip side, where shortfalls require additional investment. So by connecting our really in-depth granular labor costs to specific products and projects, organizations are then able to identify opportunities to reduce this waste and ensure that costly skilled resources are only focused on their value-added work. And so, this is just, again, something about combining this approach for tangible savings and tangible innovation. And the last point here is that idea of transparency and trust. Again, when we are looking at finance and delivery teams sharing integrated tools and integrated data, it's going to foster this culture and this idea of transparency, re democratization of data. Finance will gain insights into how funds translate into outcomes, and IT is going to now gain appreciation for financial constraints. And this mutual visibility is going to help to build the right kind of trust. And so we really want to be able to have this real-time linkage and ensure that these individuals are able to have very productive and strong conversations. So when we think about maximizing that value of IT spend, this is just a really simple way for us to view it and understand where these two intersect and how we can ultimately help it make the overall partnership stronger. It's about helping to justify and optimize IT spend. It's about shifting IT from a cost center to a value center, able to demonstrate that business value. And it really helps our IT, our finance, and our CIOs and other leaders to become more proactive because we're able to adjust budgets and priorities before our costs are committed. And so in the middle there, you're able to see some of these strategic outcomes because this is ultimately what we want to drive for the organization. And it's tied to that idea of business value for IT. So how do we demonstrate it? How do we showcase it for an organization perspective? And strategic budgeting will ensure you fund what matters most. Value-based budgeting or funding, will let you allocate money to projects that deliver real business outcomes, not just those that need budget. We've got continuous reprioritization, which lets you shift investments as new opportunities or risks emerge. And our cost to value transparency means you can explain, but also you can defend every dollar of IT spent based on what it's delivering. So again, it is about that holistic view of IT investments, including cloud, on-prem, labor, and more, and how it's tied to strategic portfolio items. Now, this is another way where we can sort of think about this journey of where am I at today? Where do I need to get to? How can I really implement this in a very strategic way? And so this is something that we've put together that hopefully will help just to educate where we think some of these maturity pathways can go. And by no means does this mean this is what every organization should do, but this is a really great way for those that are new to both principles and both solutions to really understand how they can get started in an easy way, how they can demonstrate value, how they can showcase that ROI, and ultimately what it's going to deliver for their organization. So if we think about the far left here, it's all about simplification. This is our IT financial management foundation. So again, moving to the automation, the modernization, the digitization that exists to bring in countless spreadsheets, individuals, business units, data, everything into one area that is going to make it easier for you to understand how you can focus on cost reduction and optimization, how you're able to accelerate planning and forecasting, how you're able to enhance stakeholder accountability and drive and accelerate digital transformation. Once you've got a good grounding in IT financial management, it's really about that idea of elevation. So this is building upon that great foundation that you've got in that first simplify stage. And it's about advancing our cost modeling. So it's about bringing in more data sets, bringing in more complex and granular cost allocations, bringing in enhanced labor optimization and spend management, moving to fully burdened TCO and detailed infrastructure analysis and optimization. And once we reach this point, we really think this is where it's a fantastic opportunity to start thinking about merging IT financial management and strategic portfolio management, because this moves us beyond that idea of just looking at the portfolio, doing these optimizations, and it shifts us into this more agile mindset. So this is around that overall strategic portfolio alignment, the prioritization and funding, resource optimization, so people and capital, and providing an integrated financial and delivery view. And the simple way to think about this is that ongoing optimization of run versus grow. Again, keep the lights on versus growth and innovation for the organization. We're able to do this in a much more prescriptive, clear, and very easy to understand way because we're able to provide that defensibility, the traceability, the backing to showcase why we want to make these decisions, how we're reacting to internal and external changes, and how we are making the investment decisions that are going to benefit the organization in the best way. Now that's, all good and well to chat about them in principle, but how do we build out a framework? How do we really implement this? And knowing why is important, but it's really about how do we bring it together, and implementing the right kind of alignment. It's going to require the right kind of process. So again, we're using the process word again, because solutions are great, but we need the right kind of individuals bought in to drive the right kind of necessity need within the organization. So this is going to be across people, process, technology, IT. And this is a high-level framework that organizations can use to get started and realize the benefits of the integration. Again, this is by no means you have to follow this step by step. This is just what we've seen from a lot of learnings and different organizations that we work with across the globe. And obviously the first step we always want to look at is, again, that idea of buy-in. We want executive and stakeholder buy-in. So establishing cross-functional leadership, this is going to really secure the buy-in from both the technology side and the finance side. We're able to potentially form a joint task force or steering committee with IT leadership, so CIO, PMO, and finance leadership to drive these integration initiative. And this will really provide the right kind of governance, set the right kind of goals, and really signal to the organization that IT investments and finances will be managed in tandem to move forward. The next is around creating that unified model. So again, eliminate the data disconnects. By implementing ITFM and SPM, it means connecting the data from project portfolios with financial and operational data in one-to-one relationships. So practically mapping your portfolios, programs, and projects to your financial structure. So think cost centers, budget categories, etc. Many organizations will adopt a standard taxonomy. For example, the TBM taxonomy, which is something that Apptio helped to pioneer with the TBM Council about 16, 17 years ago. And really, this is going to ensure that your tooling can link project records with cost records at the lowest level of detail. Again, I've made that comment around spreadsheets and manual processes without that drill and trace. When we say that lowest level of detail, this is providing you with that granularity, so that way, when you see a cost associated to a project or a product, you're able to drill into it to understand the unit economics. What are the key cost drivers? Who was working on it? And really drill and trace through multiple layers to get to that finite and granular detail that you're going to need to be able to explain what it's doing, what it is driving, and how it is impacting the organization. And also, if it is the right kind of decision for the organization. So this is all really critical information, having that right kind of framework, because if you have again, that litmus test of the elevator, if someone says, show me how much we spent on initiative X and what value it delivered, you should be able to pull that information out without a manual spreadsheet hunt. This should be immediate, at your fingertips, real-time data, relevant, and allow you to drive the right kind of actionable insight from that. The next step is really around integrating the tools and automating the workflows. Again, it's all about selecting the right tools that's going to accelerate the alignment. So many legacy PPM or finance or ERP tools are going to operate in silos. So you want to consider modern solutions that are designed to work together. So you want to automate where possible, because Excel handoffs with system workflows is going to be really difficult. And you want to ensure that it's going to have that automation that's going to be able to update in real time, provide you with the right kind of continuous alignment, and create almost that closed loop system for you that will help ensure that you're going to eliminate error-prone manual reconciliation, or even just things like data entry errors. The next is adopting that idea of lean budgeting and continuous planning. So really, it is moving away from our static annual budgeting into more agile continuous planning that's going to align with your portfolio cadence. So you can think about techniques like lean budgeting from agile frameworks such as SAFe. These can be effective, but it's the ultimate goal here of the organization to move away from something that is very rigid and set up things that are quarterly portfolio funding reviews, if not quicker. right? So it is really about being able to set up the right kind of information and committees to evaluate where and when we need to pivot funds and ensure that we are able to adapt to changing business cycles. The next steps are really around value and outcomes continuously. So again, part of this framework is establishing those shared metrics, shared dashboards that are going to help you gauge success. So we can integrate the process, but we need to really connect the financial efficiency with strategic impact. So again, investment to value ratio. And so we want to be able to create that feedback loop. So implementing our OKRs at multiple levels from portfolio, product, and team, and the outcomes that come in, and linking that to financial spend. So really providing that right kind of feedback loop and bringing the right metrics that your organization needs and wants to track from that perspective. And the last point here is the cultural change and collaboration. We recognize that aligning ITFM and SPM is as much about people as it is about the process. So it really comes down to encouraging that culture of collaboration and transparency. It's adopting this new trend that we're seeing, adopting this new focus where we're seeing CIOs have to work across the CXOs, work more closely with our app and service owners. And so this might mean that we've got to bring in some cross-training with teams. It could be establishing regular cadence, but it really is about encouraging those, whether they be in finance, IT, or business units, to participate early in the strategic planning. So that way they can better understand the why behind initiatives. And likewise, have IT participate in financial reviews to understand cost pressures and trade-offs. So it really is about creating this cultural shift. But this is a great opportunity because we're able to integrate a lot of these great processes, and it goes from a mindset shift of finance versus IT versus business unit to one team delivering business value. And ultimately, this framework is going to drive the right kind of leadership alignment, unified data, integrated tools, lean processes, outcome metrics, and cultural change. And organizations that can successfully implement this kind of alignment will reap rewards. So it's wise to start small and really scale up as the benefits become more and more evident, because again, this is about bringing in the right tooling, the automation, the solutioning, the people, and the processes. Really, at IBM Apptio and IBM as a whole within our technology business management portfolio, it's really about simplifying the complexity by bringing multiple data streams under one roof. It's about the aggregation of IT spend, cloud, operational metrics, and business intelligence, enabling organizations to connect tech investments directly to business value. Now, today we spoke really heavily around the top two here, strategic portfolio management and IT financial management. There's obviously that third portfolio that is tied to the Apptio, which is around that full FinOps. But really what we want to convey here is that, again, with technology business management and that superseding layer of Apptio, it is about bringing all of this, and we're talking 350 plus different data sources, ERPs, workflow, operational data. And it's about normalizing, it's about aggregating, automating, simplifying, and bringing this into one consolidated platform that's going to remove a lot of that manual and error-prone process that might exist in an organization today, and really focus on that simplification and digital innovation that you need as an organization.
Hey, Gavin, at this point out, maybe it would be good for you to tell everyone how they can start. With a couple of minutes left in our session,
yes.
We want to let everybody have an opportunity to sign up for the next session as well. Maybe this is a good break for you to say, if you're interested in this, how do I follow up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are interested, what we can do, we can send out a quick email and follow up to everybody that did attend. But please feel free, you can also go to apptio.com. We also have Laura and Kiara who are in the attendance portal right now. They're able to connect with you directly. Otherwise, my name is Gavin Cutler. It's just gavin.cutler@ibm.com. Happy to set up some meetings, learn a little bit more. Otherwise, apptio.com has a place where you can set up time for a demo, learn more, interact more with our product teams. And so there are quite a variety of ways, but we will ensure to follow up with everyone that did attend today's session and ensure you've got all the key contacts, and we can provide you with any assets, communications, information that you might need from our perspective. And thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so
We're
much.
getting tight on time, so I want to ensure that we have time.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes, so thank you for that. For our participants, there's a way for you to evaluate us and let us know how we did. If you think we did really well, please take that survey and tell us how we did. If you don't think we did well, don't worry about that. Just move on to your next session and you don't need to write anything. Just kidding. Just give us whatever feedback you have. We like to follow up on that. We like to get better at what we do. And again, Gavin and Andrew, thank you so much for your time, and we'll catch up with you guys later. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone.